Life wasn't supposed to go this way, but sometimes we have little choice of selecting how it goes. 2007 was the year I officially was diagnosed with a skeletal muscle disease called inclusion body myositis, a slow progressive condition for which there are no cures or treatments found to help. But IBM had me when saying hello to me a few years before doctors told me what was wrong with my skeletal muscles. This IBM sat in the background snickering and laughing, knowing there was nothing that could be done once it got started in me. No treatment or meds affect IBM, and no amount of special exercise eradicates IBM. We and our caregivers become captive to this disease while we hear and feel the IBM laughing at us inside our fraying bodies.
Hi, my name is Jerry. Thanks for tuning into this episode. I plan on telling you more of what I chronologically experienced during my entire IBM journey from near the beginning to where I'm at now. Back in 2008, myositis doctors Amato and Barron converted the functional rating scale for use in IBM, announcing 3 stage categories. The first stage, or category that can also be labeled as mild, or what I might call the discovery stage, might be considered by some as being very mentally stressful when contemplating the realities of what our futures might become. When in stage 1 of this IBM, there are already many questions and so few answers available. My questions at that time were, how did I catch this disease? When will treatments be available? How fast will it degenerate my muscles? How long will I be considered productive in my job or workplace? And can my house be made handicap accessible, or will I need to relocate? Will enough caregivers be available to help me in years to come? I'm sure you have had hundreds of other questions that popped up in your mind during your early IBM years. IBM is a variable disease of the skeletal muscles in that there's no defined order among its indicators. So in this video I will be describing my progression as I have experienced it. Your experiences, of course, may differ. In some IBM adults, the hands or arms may be affected first, while it's the weak leg quad muscles and knee extensors that are noticed first in others. My first functional clue there was something wrong was the unexpected falls in late 2004, whereas my first physical appearance changes I noticed were some thinning of my arms in early 2006, followed by finger stiffness and weakness by early 2007. Weakness of my elbow contraction and extension controlled by the triceps and biceps, and also weakness of the forearm muscles that control wrist and finger flexing were encountered. It became difficult, then later impossible, to make a simple fist. As complex as our muscular system is, you can appreciate that diminishment of any singular component is detrimental to operation or function. Myositis is usually summarized as affecting the proximal muscles, or those muscles closest to the trunk of the body. What really makes IBM unique is that it also tends to affect the distal muscles, or those furthest from the trunk of the body, like weakening in forearms, fingers, ankles, and feet. I endured everything until the weakness started degrading my arms and hands to a point that I could only grasp and lift a fraction of what I could only a few years prior. In late 2006, I visited my primary care physician that prompted a barrage of appointments with 3 different orthopedic specialists who finally referred me to a neurologist that insisted on repeating all the EMG tests prior to the diagnosis of IBM. Within a few months, I had the muscle biopsy verification from my left quad and received results being consistent with inclusion body myositis. My diagnosis was about 6 years before I started officially tracking my IBM using the functional rating scale, but when I score myself based on my recollection of 2007, my score would have been in the 36 to 37 point vicinity. Now 13 years later, I've degraded to a dreadful score of 2.75 out of a possible 40-point FRS scale.
My history of IBM dates back to late 2004 when I unexpectedly fell down while walking on our subdivision walking paths. My knee buckled and I went down. What the hell just happened? I thought as I got back up, shook my head and continued home. A few months later my knee gave out again, followed by another fall when descending some stairs at my workplace shortly after returning from an overseas business trip. In the fall of 2005, my knee gave out descending the last step off a commuter aircraft, grinding both knees into the tarmac. I can vividly remember 7 falls in about a year's time frame. Not a clue what was going on, all while deciding to decrease the reps on the multi-station exercise machine we had in our home's basement. Adding exercise reps didn't help, and in fact I had to decrease the resistance weight in order to maintain the rep count. Something was definitely wrong. IBM falling is usually the result of a loss of knee extension strength and is relevant in patients even in early stage 1. Many times some unexpected falling is the first clue something is wrong when looking back before a diagnosis. Some IBMers fall because of foot drop, where the front of the foot falls early in mid-step and catches the walking surface, interrupting momentum resulting in a spill. IBMers sometimes compensate for their foot drop by raising the suspect foot a little higher in their gait. Although I don't remember any falls caused by foot drop, some of my worst falls during my stage 1 time frame resulted in almost vertical knee collapse, landing directly on top of my feet in a very painful fashion. Because getting up from a falling position was steadily becoming more and more difficult, I enhanced my safety and mobility with a 3-wheel scooter from MDA. That was in 2008, only 14 months after my diagnosis. My quality of life improved having a scooter, with hundreds of fall-free trips to the grocery store and many hours of riding with my grandson on my lap. In 2008, I found it necessary to build my first riser to assist me in getting up from my recliner. Life was becoming more difficult for me. Some of the tools that were employed because of the early IBM hand weakness and dexterity were the use of a pocket dresser that was used to button my shirt, do my pants button and zipper, as well as being a mini pickup tool and grabber. Later I had to affix a lanyard to it to get out of my pocket. I had a paint can opener handy, often to open drawers as well. Installation of lever-style door latches and an automatic door opener also played a huge role in mobility when going in and out of our house when using a cane, walker, scooter, or power chair. Later in 2008, I was really struggling with any stairs in our quad-level home. First pulling up with the assistance of one arm, then installed a second handrail to lift with 2, I realized we'd better be searching for a single-level home right away. Luckily we found one, as I showed in my Myositis episode number 39, moved quickly so I could still participate in some of the remodeling tasks required in the ranch home we purchased. I won't mention the difficulty of selling our quad-level home in a slow and depressed housing market of 2009 and 10. Stressful times, but we survived. Occasional falling did continue throughout 2009 through 13, and I didn't appreciate any of the associated foot, knee, arm, or head injuries that accompanied most falls. I guess my common sense prevailed over my false pride, and I elected to look for a power chair that I could use around the house and short jaunts out to the garage. I found a like-new low-mileage Quantum 6000Z for $500 that served me well for the next 4 years. Without an elevating seat, I got to the standing position by using the seat tilt to help boost me up. Well, my story so far has taken you up to about 2013 and more than 6 years past my official IBM diagnosis verification from a muscle biopsy. 2013 is also the first year that I took the functional rating scale survey. I scored a 20 that year. I'll pick up my IBM story in the next episode and walk you through some of the key actions I took when in stage 2 of this muscle disease, including some special tests that I did to try to further identify my condition. I'll speak to how much my body has weakened,
and some of my proactive steps I took to stay ahead of my IBM. Until then, make sure you are subscribed to this channel and smash that thumbs up or like button if you appreciate this IB myositis series.